Black screen. Silence.
I don't know who sent it, but those records, every single one checks out. I spent 3 days on this, 3 days, and not one of them was false. Not one.
7 board members sat around a dark wooden table and were studying police for a few light.
Every single entry comes with dates and these aren't accusations, they're documentation.
17 years, someone sat in a corner and kept receivers thought she was just filing paperwork.
Time rewinds. 17 years earlier.
I stood at the entrance of the open plan office, carrying a dark brown handbag in my hand. I was led to a desk in the corner.
Administrative assistant, desk next to the print room. Before 9 tomorrow, resort all the client envelopes alphabetical by last name, don't mix them up.
Okay.
I didn't say a single unnecessary word. I pulled open the first drawer straight away and placed the sticky note in the corner of it. The tips of my fingers brushed the edge of the paper, which carries a faint rough texture. That afternoon, as I was passing by the pantry, a female clerk colleague stopped me.
Could you fix this report for me? I can't the formatting right.
Sure.
The colleague says thanks and walks off, her footsteps receding quickly down the hall. She doesn't look back. I pulled open the drawer, fished out a sticky note, and then jotted a line of words on it. I stuck the note to the inner wall of the drawer, making sure it was firmly attached. The drawer closes with a short, clean click. I sat at my desk with a sheet of printed paper spread in front of me. There was a 3 People's Travel Reinstatement Forms. I double-checked the Bascarned records and then jotted down the correct values with a gel pen. I marked verified on the label with a pencil, then tossed the fold into the pending file tray. Delivering another past their desk, my gaze fell on a sticky note on the edge of their monitor. I kept walking, placed the documents on the desk, then turned around and left. Back at my desk, I pull out the drawer and add an entry to the note on the inside wall. I don't need the numbers themselves, I just need to remember that there's something there. I close the drawer. This apartment is extremely small. A desk is placed against the wall and an old table lamp is casting a warm yellow glow. A fine crack in the Lextra beam. I sit at the desk and open a card box, standard office supply box. Inside are about 50 sticky notes, each one with a date, a name, a piece of information. I laid them out one by one on the table. My fingers pause on each one, smoothing down curled corners. I start writing, the pen making a soft scratch as it moves, like someone quietly weaving a web. I write dates, names, coded references, codes only I can decipher. It was long past midnight when I closed my notebook. I stuffed the notebook and that box of sticky papers into a locked suitcase under the bed, then snapped the lid shut with a click. I spend a week compiling a client data sheet. I reclassify 3 years of records, consolidate scattered files, fill in missing fields. A few days later, during a departmental meeting, the direct presented a data table and it was exactly the version I had put together.
Thanks to Harvey Brandon's excellent work in sorting out this mess of data.
Applause rippled through the room. Harvey, dressed in a blue suit, sat at the far end of the table. I sat in my seat, hands resting on my knees, not moving a single inch.
Actually, Bernadette helped me with some of the data entry. She's very reliable with that kind of thing.
He continues on, his pace doesn't slow. I stay where I am. That evening when I got home, I took the notebook out of my suitcase. 2008-10-13, Harvey. My pen pauses on the last character. I don't wipe it away. Then I slip the sticky note into my suitcase, closed the lid and locked it. The company party is at a bar, amber dim lighting casting soft shifting glows on the walls. I sit at the edge of the bar, a half-drunk glass of white wine before me. Next to me sits an analyst 5 or 6 years younger, who's had a few. His voice is higher than usual, his fingers tracing absent-minded lines on the wood, like someone trying to make sense of something he can't fully see.
You remember that merger and acquisition deal last year, right? Harvey wasn't the one behind it at all. He dragged his feet on the whole thing until the very last minute before making a move.
He pauses, his fingers stop moving.
I pulled 3 all-nighters on that analysis.
I listen quietly. I don't agree, don't probe, don't nod, just lets the words settle in the air. My fingers gently turn the wine glass's stem, making a slow spiral in the wine. That night when I got home, I opened the suitcase, flipped to the page marked Harvey, and added a line of text at the footer. I closed my notebook, put it into the suitcase and then slid the suitcase under the bed. Senior manager walked up to my desk holding a fizzle file. He looked clearly stressed, brusque.
Your medics and how discussed when hides. The system I said is still inside now. I think it takes a 24 hours, but I need access right now.
My gaze languished to use for a moment as I observed him quiet.
It's alphanumeric, I think. Starts with PRJ followed by 3 digits.
These passwords are usually tied to the project start date. Try PRJ042. That project kicked off back in April. He froze in front of the computer, his fingers resting on the keyboard, staring blankly at the prompt as if he had just crossed a hurdle he had once thought insurmountable.
You're a walking database.
I just got lucky with the memory. After writing, I put the sticky note into the storage box. The head of human resource sat across the conference table. Her fingers pressed gently on the data. We truly appreciate your hard work over these years. Unfortunately, there's only one administrative promotion spot this round and decided to go with a high academic degree.
I understand.
You've always been a vital part of this team and we hope you'll keep up the good work. I will. Stepped by Harvey's office and heard him on a jubilant celebratory call, his laughter echoing through the Harvey's office and heard him on a celebratory call, his laughter echoing through the corridor beyond the glass door. I didn't pause, just walked straight past. That night I added manual unfist BC notebook, marked only the date. I cluster my Arlene KDT was menabering to Vauclins and Porcelet sense Forbes Catherine. My hands resting on my knees, I had no intention on his lap. When I stepped out of the cubicle, my female colleague had already hung up the phone and was leaning over to wash her hands.
Did you hear that?
I walked over to the sink and turned on the faucet. I heard voices, but I wasn't paying attention to stare straight at me. Her gaze sharp as she scrutinized my expression closely. After female Ford mirror eyes cast down, turned around in a flustered I hurried out of the restroom. That night I returned to my office to document everything I had seen and heard. Bathroom conversation. Complainers target unclear. Involves credit allocation. Unverified. For potential reference only.
Who can fix this?
I stood up. Everyone in the Ayatol Beskak and Detsvise of Complete Fort Amasev would date it out 7-2 system. I hit print. The printer runs slowly. I delivered the documents to HR well within their deadline. On my way back I passed Harvey in the hallway. He was standing close to another coworker speaking in a tone loud enough for anyone walking by to catch every word. I didn't slow down as I walked past and sat down, pausing with my fingers resting on the desktop. I then opened my drawer and picked up my pen. That night I added a new entry to my records. I closed my notebooks. I the highlight cabinet stood in the apartment. I course and work in Columbus right Hybgos. Spent at my pan note billing to recarption. Me ended risen over 4 Kletzig first names were separated from Philholmsla and to mean the attritions. Give a little after it in mitter to steady it for the cabinet. The next day, I put the cabinet key together with the key to my metal box, and tucked them deep inside the pages of a thick book on my bookshelf. I'm 47 years old now. Strands of gray weave through my hair. When I twist it back into a bun, those pale silver threads catch the overhead lights, glinting like scattered flecks pressed into my locks by the slow hand of time. I've gone through dozens of gray pencil skirts. Minor tweaks to the cut, but always the same muted shade. It's like a path I've trodden for 17 years. The scenery shifts all around, yet the road itself never moves. I've replaced countless sticky note dispensers at my desk. They form a paper chain I built with my own hands stretching across desks. A cardboard box sits, a tiny houseplant with faint burnt yellow fringing on every leaf, left parched when I headed out on vacation once. Even so, its leaves keep unfurling little by little, stubbornly carrying on growing in their quiet way. A mug, split by a thin crack running rim all the way to base, worn into it by years of hot brews and sudden temperature shifts. I tuck each photo of my older sister and I, its edges curledly thin from age, then seal the box shut with packing tape. Not a single coworker stops by to see me off, or even offer a hand packing up. I finish my handover checklist, a thorough, unremarkable file listing every vendor contact, updated archive location, and step-by-step procedure I've overgone all these years. I type out every line, check each entry. At the bottom of the email I type one line, "Thank you all for your years of collaboration." I hit send, at pine screen, before fading away. My note vanishes into a sedentism of office correspond away and forgotten somewhere far out of sight. I carry a cardboard box past the front desk. The receptionist lifts her gaze. Her eyes linger on the box in my arms a beat longer than usual. Then she speaks.
Bernadette, is today really your last day? I had no idea.
I stop walking. The box familiar as a pair of well-worn shoes molded to my feet over years.
Yeah, my final shift.
We're gonna miss you around here. You're the only one who knows where every single thing is filed.
I offer a faint smile. Someone else will figure out the system eventually. I walk out into the street. The glass doors slide shut behind me.
I set the cardboard box on the back seat of a taxi and give the driver my home address. As the car pulls away, I stare out the window at the bank's glass facade glittering in the afternoon sun. 17 years I spent inside that building, yet my gaze stays locked on that garage, watching it when each vanished piece by piece, until it disappears entirely from sight. Back home, I set the cardboard box down hard on the floor. It lands with a dull, hollow thud. I make no move to unpack it right away. I cross to my bookshelf, pull out a thick hardcover, and slide 2 metal keys free from between its pages. I unlock the metal storage chest first, then the tall filing cabinet within. Rows upon row of thousands of sticky notes sit neatly stacked inside, sorted by the filing index I built all those years ago. I sink down into my desk chair and stare at them. I built an encrypted database that runs entirely offline, no internet connection required whatsoever. I started with my oldest stack of handwritten notes, typing every single slip one by one into the system. I held each script under the lamp to reread every word before transcribing them onto the screen. It felt like slowly, completely draining a vessel. Every entry had standardized fields: date, full name, category, detailed account, plus a credibly ranking. I set up a dedicated tab just for Harvey Brandon, compiling every file I'd collected on him and one undisclosed conflict 17 years. By the time I finished typing the final entry, the clock was edging towards dawn. Outside the window, pitch black had faded to a muted slate gray blue draped thin and translucent over the whole city. The database held 3,274 separate entries tracking more than 150 coworkers and supervisors. I named the archive reference log. I backed the full file onto 3 separate encrypted flash drives, one stashed at home, one locked in my bank safe deposit box, and the third kept on my person at all times. I shut the laptop lid, my reflection stared back, worn out, eerily calm like a river that wound a long course and finally spilled out into open water. Then the image vanished entirely. He lays out his platform to the CEO position, fluid hand gestures, every movement radiating the self-confidence he spent years mining. Once he finishes his pitch, he retakes his seat.
We've got 2 weeks to lock in our pick. Out of the 3 contenders, you've got the strongest internal backing.
A restrained, confident smirk tugs at Harvey's lips. Harvey doesn't slow down for a second.
This'll all be wrapped up soon enough.
The elevator doors slide shut, and the floor counter ticks downward. Interior, bank boardroom office, 4 days before election results release. Every board member found an identical email sitting in their inbox. It was sent from an untraceable anonymous account, with the subject line left completely blank. The body of the message contained just one single line of text: see the attached document for supplementary background on the candidate's credit standing. Attached to the email was a PDF file holding 37 separate entries. Each was clear labeled with exact dates, involved parties, and full accounts of what had transpired. The document detailed multiple incidents. The 2009 merger and acquisition deal. Harvey claimed full lead responsibility, yet internal project filers named enough to execute. A data discrepancy in a 3-year client briefing. Harvey put forward on a junior team member during internal meeting, though database logs proved he signed up to on the firm consultor role without disclosing the connection to the firm. An internal employee grievance filed in 2021. An analyst stated during their exit interview that Harvey repeatedly took credit for work completed by his subordinates. Every entry came paired with cross-variable source references. None of the claims stood alone as unsubstantiated accusations. They functioned like load-bearing beams spread throughout a building. The board of directors voted to put the official appointment on hold immediately. That same afternoon, Harvey was summoned to provide a formal statement responding to all the evidence laid out in the file. Harvey stepped out of the conference room, his face tight with unease. He falls mid-stride in the hallway. No one had called his name. It's bloody slowed and reacting long before his mind could catch up. Disfarber, he's at me sprat or read scrap a scrap of paper off the floor. I stood straight and tossed the trash into the bin beside me. I looked less like an employee here, more like someone just passing through. I turned my head and locked eyes with him. Harvey started walking towards me, his gait slower than usual. It was the stiff, deliberate stride of someone clinging hard to composure, testing every step to steady himself.
You sent it, didn't you?
Do you have any idea how many times your names come up in break rooms and restrooms over 17 years? Do you know where every single misstapled live and Oprah oversight really stemmed from? I paused for a beat. I compiled stacks of notes. It wasn't some premeditated scheme. I just listened and I watched all these years.
You waited all these years just for this moment?
I wasn't waiting for anything. I only held it on the evidence. When the opening presented itself, I handed it over. I turned and headed for the elevators. As the doors slid shut behind me, I caught a glimpse of Harvey still rooted to the spot, unmoving. Small snags keep popping up in the bank's admin workflow. Archived files go missing, no one can track down old backup logins after passwords expire, and a vendor contract renewal deadline slipped right past the team. Then the new staff scrambling to get up to speed, yet you'll constantly overhear people lingering in the hallway muttering. Back when Bernadette was here, she mentioned some kind of backup system, I think.
You know, my first week on the job, Bernadette handed me a full A4 sheet, front side packed tight. It mapped every staff member's month's responsibilities and which passwords lined up with each internal system. I thought it was just a random list back then to sub, and everyone's still talking about years later, and that how all the critical trail vanished out of no way.
None of that office chatter bay reaches me anymore. I'm no longer there. Listen. I handed in my resignation. It actually feels really freeing. The city outside glows brighter than usual this time of year. A handwritten letter sits in my mailbox. No signature, yet I'd know that handwriting anywhere. It's the kind of script that still holds its unique character after years of typing. Neat, steady strokes across the page, crafted with a rare, deliberate patience. When I finish reading, my fingers hover along the edge of the paper. The texture of the stationery, the simple fact that someone took the time to write this out by hand instead of firing off an email, hits me all at once. Some of the people I've assisted still remember what I did for them. I tuck the letter away in a drawer, separate from all the random sticky notes I've collected over time. I never write back. I've no clue who sent it, and there's no point trying to find out. It stays tucked away, an unspoken mystery that doesn't need an answer. I fully reorganized everything inside the filing cabinet. I kept the encrypted database intact but wiped every page tied to Harvey. All that's left now is a generic summary with none of the granular details. I've got no use hanging onto intel I've already put to work. I pulled the encrypted flash drive out of my everyday bag and set it right next to the archival boxes on the shelf. I sink down at my desk, a blank notebook spread open in front of me. On the very first page I scribbled a single line, then drew a solid horizontal line underneath it. I don't write another word after that. The ink's fully dried on the page, crisp and settled at the edges, just like a chapter fully closed, no edits left to make. I landed a part-time gig at a tiny mime profit as an operations assistant. My job covers venue coordination, volunteer scheduling, and budget tracking for all events. The office space is pretty cramped. There's an old desktop sitting on my desk next to a fresh pack of sticky notes, paler off-white than the ones I used back at the bank.
We don't expect you to know everything off the bat. We just need someone who can get all our workflows sorted out. I'm happy to give it my best shot. I grabbed the first sticky note on my new desk and jotted down the date and my supervisor's name.
After that, I scribbled down a handful of simple keywords, all the little easy-to-forget details I knew I had to keep track of. The edge of the paper brushed lightly against the metal drawer frame, making a soft sound for 17 whole years. I got straight to work building volunteer rosters, sorting out event budgets, and double-checking all logistics with our venue vendors. A younger coworker walks over to my desk, folder in hand. She lingers awkwardly, leaning forward slightly, as if approaching a map she isn't sure anyone will accept.
Bernadette, I couldn't find the VEN through's Plantac earlier and was organized. You'd already sorted all the supplier contracts and contacts by category, even verified all the phone numbers and emails. Thank you.
I look up, my gaze rests on her face for a beat. Being thanked stirs a faint sensation inside me, one I take a moment to place, like catching a snip of a melody I haven't heard in years drifting through the air. You're welcome. It's part of the job.
You know, I interviewed at another company before landing this role. They had such a streamlined system. Word was it was built by an admin who'd worked there over a decade. Everyone said once that system was gone, efficiency dropped across the board.
I don't respond. My fingers hover over the keyboard for a second, then resume typing.
That long-tenured admin must have been brilliant at organizing everything.
I turn back towards my screen and keep working on the shift schedule. Her footsteps fade down the hallway, swallowed by the low hum of the air conditioning, nearly silent, just like water settling close again after a stone sinks beneath the surface. I sit at my desk, flipping through the blank notebook, and pauses on a page near the middle. I pick up a pen and scribbles a few lines down, no dates, no names, just moments I haven't thought about in years, flattened thin by the weight of time. One afternoon, I handed a coworker a cup of tea in the break room. She grabbed it without looking up, glued to her phone screen.
Thanks.
All she said was thanks, her voice flat, brief, no rise, no warmth. I watched her figure round the corridor corner and disappear. At one annual company dinner, I sat all the way in the back row. The winner on stage thanked everyone, project teams, support staff, partners. My name never crossed their trem. One night I worked overtime until the wee hours. I turned off the lights and headed down the stairs alone. My footsteps bounced off the bare walls, echoing hollowly through the empty stair hell. By the time I reached the lobby, every light was out. Only the faint green emergency setlet sign glowed along the edge of the darkness. Once I finished writing these fragments, I leaned back in my chair for a long moment. Outside the window, the winter night lays quiet and still. It's like windless water, so smooth you could mistake it for a mirror at rest. I closed the notebook and set it back on the edge of my desk. Harvey didn't get the CEO's job. The board went with another candidate, an external executive. Harvey stayed on at the firm, yet he was no longer in the running. It was like a river diverted. Water still fills the old channel, but it's no longer the main current. During the final internal meeting, one board member made a remark. Candidates must have a full, traceable professional track record. No names were spoken, yet everyone in the room knew exactly who it referred to. A hush fell over the boardroom once the words sank in. Some shuffled paperwork, others stared down at their notebooks. Not a single person glanced Harvey's way. After the meeting, as Harvey walked down the 17th floor corridor, he paused at the glass door where he'd once locked eyes with me. He stared at the desk inside. The new young female admin was sorting through documents. She looked up, spotted him standing there, and gave him a confused nod. Harvey said nothing in return. He kept walking straight ahead, not stopping by the break room. He never brought the whole matter up to anyone again.
Heard the story? Someone put together this full set of internal operational notes for the bank. Word is they spent over a decade compiling everything. Once that person left the firm, all those little specifics vanished with them. I think it was an admin building up all that intel, just scribbling everything down on sticky notes.
You know, every time I see a sticky note these days, this whole thing crosses my mind.
None of these sounds will reach Bernadette. She's long gone.
Yet this lingering feeling remains. Someone who was once here, left behind a body of knowledge no one can replicate. It settles slowly, fine sand sinking through the current of time, quietly and firmly filling every pause in people's conversations. I'm organizing a record of venue usage for events. Spread out in front of me is a checklist filled with event figures from the past 12 months. The rows of numbers are neat and dense, like a terrain mapped out from repeated visits. While sorting, I spots a pattern. Some venues have much higher booking success rates than others, with over half the successful bookings concentrated among a few suppliers. Not random, a persistent pattern, like an invisible path that's been walked enough times to show its track. I compile the findings into a basic graph and send it to my supervisor with a short note attached. If you want to optimize the venue budget, these suppliers have renegotiate. Their renewal rate is about 20% above average, and they show better long-term stability. Where did you pull all this data from? I pulled it from the past year's logs. All records are properly categorized and archived. I move on to other tasks, offering no further commentary on what I've uncovered. Harvey leaves the bank. No public announcement on his last day, no or farewell gathering. He just packs his desk, personal items into a briefcase and heads for the elevator. Passing the lobby, he sees the receptionist sorting a stack of sticky traits, yellow on the left, pink in the middle, white on the right, her movements practiced and quiet. Harvey slows down. His eyes rest on the stack for a moment longer than a casual glance. He's looking at those categorized sheets. Maybe what he's really seeing is the quiet order someone built. Then he keeps walking. Nobody sees him off. He pushes through the revolving door and steps onto the street, asphalt. I'm straightening up my bookshelf, lining up all the file boxes, when an old crate I'd completely forgotten about catches my eye. It's the last stack of sticky notes I brought home from the office the day I quit. I'd stashed it away without sorting through any of it back then. I lift the lid and the notes inside are split into year bundles, bound with rubber bands, each wrap stack marked with its own paper label. I grab the oldest bundle, 2007. I slip off the rubber band and unfold one faded yellow slip. My fingertips brush across the page. After over a decade locked away, the paper's grown faintly grainy, worn thin as if the air itself slowly etched its surface. I stare at my old handwriting. My strokes were thinner back then, pressed harder into the paper, like someone who had no idea how long the road ahead would stretch. I fold it back up and set it down. I retie the rubber band, slide the bundle back into the crate, and tuck the whole box onto the top shelf, lined up alongside every other file container. I stand there in front of the shelf, gazing at the neat row of labeled boxes. Heard you've got the full hang of all our internal procedures.
Could I pick your brain real quick? Where do I unlock editing access for this contract template?
Just update the figures right here, then save the file to our shared drive folder. But make sure you cross-reference all the numbers against our most recent budget spreadsheet before you hit save. This is the up-to-date copy.
Wait, why do you keep a physical copy? We've got the digital files stored in the system, right?
The digital version's there too, but hard copies make side-by-side checks way faster. The server lags every now and then, printed documents never do. I pull out an old book, a volume on the city's history. Its pages have yellowed at the edges, and several stitches along the spine have come loose. I flip to the page marked by a bookmark, and spot a short note scribbled in pencil in the margin. Watch the small movements, and you'll start to understand a person's real intentions. The rhythm and pauses in a voice reveal more than you realize, before you even notice. Those moments wait for no one's confirmation. I have no memory of when I wrote this. I stare at the handwriting. It's mine. Every stroke, every turn of phrase. Yet the version of me who wrote it feels far away, out of sight. I close the book, letting my fingers rest briefly on the cover. Not every observation needs to be held on to. Some things deserve to be preserved. Others are better left where they lie. The supervisor walks into my office, holding a freshly received annual budget sheet, a puzzled look on her face.
Bernadette, do you have a minute to take a look at this? I can't make heads or tails of some of these numbers.
I takes the sheet, my eyes scanning over it. My fingers glide slowly down the column of numbers, pausing at one spot. These fingers don't match the historical data I compiled earlier. There's an expense counted twice here. This supplier's invoice got missified under two categories, so the total was double counted. That affects the actual available budget space. The supervisor leans in to take a look, then nods.
You're right. That's definitely a double entry. You remind me a lot of our former admin.
Excuse me?
She was really good at spotting patterns in numbers too. Then she left, and it took us months to get our processes back on track. There was so much important info hidden in the record she left behind that we didn't realize mattered at the time.
The supervisor doesn't say anything else and walks out of the office. Staring down at the budget sheet. I slip the sheet into a new folder, and on the label, it reads, Annual Budget. My fingers paused on the spine of the folder, the rough texture of the cardboard, the solid structure of the bound pages. Then I slide it into the filing cabinet, lining it up with the other folders. I sit on a park bench, a book open across my lap. I'm not reading it. Wind moves through the leaves in a continuous rustle, like pages turning far away. I watch kids dart across the lawn. Their voices rise and fall in waves, drifting closer then slipping away again. My mind drifts back to my first day at the bank. Back then I figured I'd stay 2 years, 3 at most. I ended up staying 17. I never mapped out any of those 17 years. I just kept taking whatever was handed to me, memorizing where everything belonged. I don't regret those years. I just I'd realized soon I didn't have to be the one catching everything forever. I close the book, stand up, and head home along the park path. Sunlight filters through the tree canopy, casting shifting flecks of light across my shoulders. Yellow teat notes on my desk. The Citinib was slightly lighter than the ones I'd used back at the bank. Wamalaligzolatize and new eyes in dusk. No more passwords or hidden secrets. Instead, I tracked workflow patterns, vendor contacts, and venue preference feedback from our volunteers.
What are you writing down?
Just keeping track of small details that easily slip people's minds.
You could just type all this on your computer instead.
Writing things out by hand helps them stick better sometimes. I didn't explain the thousands of notes I'd written over the years or where all those old records had ended up. I simply kept writing, then stuck the new note to the inside of my desk drawer. The soft adhesion of paper made a quiet, familiar sound, one I'd grown accustomed to hearing over many years. While sorting my bookshelf, the metal box each of the fleshly prints stuffed to be empty. I lifted the box in my hands and threw its beer sight to this dust container stuffed all the years ago. The bottom was smooth gitchbega lined with faint tiny scratches along the edges, marks left from long ago with no clear memory of when they were made. I didn't throw it away. I set it back in the corner on the bottom shelf, resting there as an empty vessel. Beside it I placed a brand new stack of blank white notes, untouched and pristine, a quiet symbolic stacked, their quiet is crisp and spotless. All the old memories remained, yet they no longer weighed on me or stood in my way. During our end-of-quarter review meeting, our supervisor went over our performance from the past few months.
We've significantly improved our venue utilization and cut overall costs by roughly 12%. Bernadette's vendor categorization system has been instrumental in these results.
There were 6 of us in the room, and noticed the village just turned towards me and laid out for everyone to see. Presented as official reference material, the spreadsheet still followed the original framework I'd built, every column and data sequence exactly how I'd organized it years prior. For the first time, my work was truly seen. I was no longer just background staff, but part of the core structure. Sort out the supplier database, summarize the rules of venue usage, and optimize volunteer scheduling. Thank you for proactively systematizing things. This has been a huge help to the team. I see the comment without pausing, but I feel a subtle shift forming. I sit on a park bench, the blank notebook on my lap. A young girl sits beside me with a sketchbook, quickly outlining the small lake across from us.
What are you drawing?
Not really anything, just doodling.
The girl nods, turns back to her own sketch. We sit together a while longer in silence. I reorganize my shelf. Old archive boxes move to the bottom, new notebooks and reference books within easy reach. In the second drawer of my desk, I place a stack of clean white sticky notes. I write milk return library on one note and stick it to the fridge door. The next day, it's pulled off and tossed in the bin. I walk past the old bank building without slowing down for a second. New potted plants line the entrance now, their broad leaves glistening dark green beneath the porch lights. The door frame's been repainted a shade darker than I remember. Through the glass doors, I spot someone heading for the lifts in the lobby. I don't recognize them, and I make no effort to get a better look. It's just another building now. I spent a stretch of my life here, once like someone who lives in an apartment for years then moves out. When you pass it later, it's nothing more than part of the city backdrop. Nor do off my rue I drag my feet. I leave the bank behind and keep walking straight down the street.
You're Bernadette, right? I used to work at that bank with you once. You helped me track down an old file a while back. You pulled it up in under 5 minutes. I still haven't forgotten. It was an audit track from a decade prior. Everyone said it was lost for good, and you just said, give me 1 sec, then pulled it straight from the backup system. Saved me hours of hassle that day.
It's coming back to me a little. Don't mention it.
Getting some reading in?
Yeah, a book about the city's history.
That sounds so you.
I haul the old metal crate out from the bottom shelf of the bookbook and set it down on the floor before flipping open the lid. It's empty inside. The base is a smooth, dull gray metal surface lined with faint little scratches along its edges. I stare at the empty crate for a while, replaying all the days I'd fill it with new things one after another. Then I snap the lid shut. I don't throw it away. I slide it back onto the bottom shelf and weigh the lid down with a thick hardcover book. I cross over to my desk, pull up the encrypted database and type in my passcode to scroll through its index. 300 and something entries, neatly sorted and easy to search through. I don't click into a single file, I only skim the folder layout. After that, I close the database, yank the USB drive out of the laptop, and tuck it all the way at the back of my desk drawer. The metal writers let out that familiar solid hum as I slide the drawer. I linger at the desk for a minute. London's night sets bleeding into a soft pale glow along the skyline. Buildings stand as dark silhouettes against the deep induced sky. I stand and walk over to the window, resting my palms flat on the windowsill. The glass feels cooler than the air against my fingertips, like the night itself brushing my skin. My gaze locks onto a slow drifting pinprick of light far off. It could be a night train or a car crossing a bridge, like someone following a set path, with their destination clear in mind. I watch the light until a block of buildings swallows it from view, then straighten up and lift my hands off the ledge. I flick off the lights and head toward through the windroom. The hum of the city drone engines dwiling through gaps between tower blocks, the sharp brief chirp of a lone bird lost in the dark, as if asking a question no one's ever fully voiced. All these noises blend into a low, constant background, rippling out past my window like faint rips across a wide lake before fading into the unseen distance. The door clicks shut softly behind me, a dry, quiet sound akin to the edge of a stack of notepads against one another, faint, yet definite. And then everything falls silent. In the corner of the print room sat an old table buried under layers of paperwork. At the very bottom, a stack of yellowed pages. The one tasked with clearing it out with a turn of 3 months. She crouched there picking up the stack of papers one by one and sorting them. Very bottom, she found a loose stack of paper. The edges were curled, the corners stained with watermarks. She picked up the top sheet. No full sentences, just a string of numbers and an abbreviation. The second sheet had no full sentences either, just a date and a string of characters.
I found some old papers in the print room, not sure they're important.
Her ollies moving across lifts the pages, pausing on the third one. These might have been left by imitate. She worked here for years.
Who's Bernadette?
The admin assistant from before. She was here 17 years, left about 2 years ago.
Are these still in use?
Probably not, but you can keep them. If you want her drafts, wish you how to start building your own. The intern took the papers back to her desk, filed them in a new folder labeled Reference, Organizational Records. That night, sitting in her small rented apartment, she spread the papers out on her table and looked through them one by one. She noticed consistency in the handwriting across every page. It was as if the same person had written them across different days, with the same steady pressure and rhythm. She did not rush to write anything down, she simply studied the pages. I'm typing up the volunteer schedule for next week on my computer. I printed the schedule and placed it in the shared folder. A colleague, Anna, about 30, stood by her desk watching, had been for a while.
Something on your mind?
I've been observing the way you handle things. You've been here for almost 2 years. I've taken note of how you go about dealing with matters.
I learned it at my old job. If you leave things traceable, people stop asking where's that file.
When you left that bank, did you leave anything behind?
Some things. Mostly process docs and archive guides.
You know what? People still talk about you sometimes. She said there's a system in their department that's still in use to this day and no one has any idea who built it.
Maybe not. Lots of admins there, all of them longer than me.
Maybe, but I doubt they all worked the way you do.
I quietly mulled over what Anna had said in my mind. That night, I got home and sat quietly at my desk for quite a while. I sat at my desk without picking up the pen. I simply sat and gazed out at the night outside her window. How people are remembered by others through the things they leave behind. Perhaps not by their names. A letter lay in her mailbox, white envelope, handwriting she recognized at a glance, those clean strokes, every letter spaced with exact precision. She opened it. Inside was a few lines of text, smaller than the address on the envelope, like the categorizer file just yet. She just let it sit, let it find its own place. She later read the letter a second time. She wondered under that she had sustained for 17 years would be rediscovered when another person needed it. She folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. She would not write a reply, yet she still did not put it away. The intern, Sarah, sat at her desk with those old pages from the print room spread before her. She was trying to decode the pattern of abbreviations and dates, marking up a scratch pad with different form of Bernadette's dad pens.
Some draft records left by an old admin. I found them in the database.
Bernadette?
You know her too?
Sarah didn't ask more. She'd one does arrangement years thefts pektats.
Sarah didn't leave right at system. She did know, but she just one met it no kapit. The falsehood one more age of them at food true loads she salmon along she immersive a bit. She'd remembered them's dates, but first fame and forth on verifying it. That was where the system truly began.
Can I ask you something? After all these years writing everything down, do you ever think it was all for nothing?
There are days I tell myself I'm just clinging to tiny, overlooked moments so I don't lose them. But over time I realize the details themselves aren't what matters. What counts is that I keep forcing myself to notice them. I pondered silently to myself, saying nothing.
And do you think all those notes actually changed anything?
It shifted one thing. It made at least one person pause and rethink all the assumptions they'd never questioned before.
It changed something. It made someone stop and rethink their unexamined assumptions as
real change. Do you still keep writing everything down these days? I still do, but I focus on different details now. Tiny, easy-to-miss things. Vendor habits, volunteer schedules, and venue usage. No sensitive information, just trivial details that can never be retrieved once lost.
Do you think anyone will carry on this system of yours?
Maybe. Not by copying every step I take, though. By grasping the reasoning behind it all. I stand before the bookshelf, gazing at the row of file boxes atop it. Neat, uniform labels, one stretch from 2007 to 2024, each bearing a penciled year opened. Rubber binded sticky notes inside stacked by month, each bundle tagged with a paper slip. I don't read any notes. I just glance at the tags, verifying they're as I left them. I rummage my desk drawer and take out a brand new file box, identical to the old ones on the shelf, crisp, unopened. I pop its lid open, revealing nothing but empty space inside. I set the empty box down on the desk, next to a stack of blank white note sheets that haven't been written on yet. I slump into the desk chair, grab a pen, and scribble the first line on a blank note. I close the note into the empty box. It lands silently flat on the bottom, the lid tight, then carry the box up to the top shelf and line it up along all the old archives. The new box rests beside the oldest, paler, untouched by time and light. I stand back before the shelf and take in the full row of boxes, have all the way through 2026 lined up with barely a gap between them. I recall starting these logs to preserve life's fleeting small moments. I never expected how the have would stretch, nor what it become on a long road without looking back or measuring the distance. Then I tidy up the shelf completely. Sarah sorts through an electronic document at her workstation. She compiles and organizes all the abbreviations and dates scribbled on sticky notes she found in the copy room, building an indent of lines in her own way. Quiet. She does not copy Bernadette's settles over her. She saves the file, closes the window, then knots a single line in her notebook. Reference collation complete. Successor framework drafted.
You've started logging things already?
I have.
Later that afternoon, when Sarah shuts down her computer, she found a strange sticky note on the main unit.
Reach out if you need template references. Kate.
Sarah stared at the note, looking puzzled, wondering who Kate was and having no idea what template the words referred to. She picked up the new note and tucked the slip of paper into her notepad. It was the first work week of the new year. Decorations still lined the streets outside. Red and gold streamers swayed softly in the cold winter breeze. I sat at my desk with a brand new notebook spread opened before me. It had a pale gray cover and every page remained blank, untouched. And I didn't have any assigned tasks for the day. My supervisor had sent an email saying the week was meant for wrapping up loose ends and organizing files, no rush to hit deadlines. I read the email twice, flipped the notebook to the first page and started drawing a table. It wasn't required for work, I wanted to do it for myself. I mark out columns on the page: date, activity, notes. It looked similar to the tables I'd put together back when I worked at the bank, yet its purpose was entirely different. I planned to track the days that brought me peace, and the quiet moments when I knew deep down I'd made the right choices. Around 11 in the morning, Anna walked past my desk and paused.
What are you working on? Just writing down a few things.
Still that sticky note system you used to keep?
Not quite the same. This time I'm aiming to document everything more fully.
I didn't elaborate, and Anna didn't press for more details. Our connection had long passed the point where constant explanations were necessary. We were like two rivers flowing steadily alongside one another, keeping a gentle distance. In the afternoon, I wrote my first entry in the table, found an unfinished site asset assessment form from last December while light sense of closure. I closed the notebook, switched off my desk lamp, and stood up. The entry I'd made that day felt far more complete than I'd expected. Sarah sorts through stacks of paperwork and stumbles across an old internal memo. Check reference docs in the shared drive before reaching out to admin with questions. Sarah spent 2 months piling over piles of these aged slips. Script on this memo lines up perfectly with all the scraps she dug up back in the copy room.
Is this handwritten note on the memo Bernadette's doing?
Yep, that's her. She was always scribbling little notes on official memos telling folks to look up answers themselves before pestering anyone. She'd never do the work for you, but she'd point you straight to the resources you needed. Sarah slips the memo back into its file box and leaves it there. She went back to her workstation, nodded a line in the notebook, February as of without rereading what she wrote. She shuts the notebook. Still, the observation settles firmly into everything she's pieced together about Bernadine. That night, she stands at her apartment window, twisting the ballpoint pen she uses for all her notes between her fingers. It hits her then. The core of whole system wasn't all the data she documented. It was her way of tackling problems, handing people the tools to figure things out on their own instead of brushing them off entirely. Sarah settles at her desk, a stack of sticky notes and a blank hard-grit notebook spread out in front of her. She hesitated for a few minutes and then picked up a pen. He wrote down a date and a name on the first sheet of paper. This particular colleague always turns in his paperwork right before deadlines, something she's picked up on lately. She scribbles a footnote at the bottom of the slip. She tucks the note inside the notebook. She has no idea how long she'll keep this up. It could last a month or stretch out for a full year. She isn't copying Bernardi's filing method. She's using those old records as a template to build an observation system entirely her own. She flips to the very first page of the notebook and writes out her personal logging rules. 1. Document only variable facts, not assumptions. 2. Rank the reliability of every source and organization sessions. She closes the notebook and places it on the middle shelf of her bookcase, separate from all her regular work files. Before killing the lights, she types a quick line into her phone's note slip. This is the start. She powers down her phone and lies back, a quiet sense of certainty washing over her, something she rarely feels. She has no clue where this new routine will lead, but she's already taken the first real step. The stacks of sticky notes rest quiet in the dark. No one has to hunt them down, they've long settled right where they belong. The next time someone's scrambling to recall something they ought to have kept in mind, they'll find a little spot all set holding that memory exactly how it should be found, neat, lined up perfectly along the edges, just waiting to be unfolded.